But we also have a really interesting story about the immigration centers and what's happening there. Ryan, I know you worked on immigration before. Looking forward to your opinions on that. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. What do you got, John?
Okay, I thought we had more ado. Okay, no ado. Okay. This week, Bill Clinton announced some of the fairly significant changes that would be coming to the Clinton Global Foundation if Hillary becomes president in November, especially his role in it. He'll be stepping down from the foundation board, and it would stop accepting money from foreign and corporate sources, he told his staff yesterday. Information on the possible role of Chelsea Clinton Foundation was not available, and people were less interested in it. But anyway, Bill Clinton also said that the Clinton Global Initiative meeting in New York next month will be the final meeting for that organization, no matter what happens with Hillary Clinton in November. So some changes will happen only if she wins, some will happen whether she wins or not. And there's some personal changes to some of the behaviors that he's done that have been very lucrative, both for the foundation and for the Clintons specifically. He said that he's decided not to give paid speeches if Hillary Clinton is elected president. The former president has not given a paid speech since November, and one of his spokespeople said, plan is, should she win, he would not give a paid speech for the entirety of her presidency. She, however, will continue.
Can you imagine? Like, the inauguration will be sponsored by Goldman Sachs, who's going to pay me $2.25 million. Okay, so I actually think this is a very good development. We probably cover the Clinton Foundation more than any show there is, TV, digital, or otherwise. And in fact, yesterday I had another story about how the Boston Globe wanted them to end the Clinton Foundation because there's just too many conflicts of interest. I didn't get to it because we had so many stories on the show yesterday.
Edwin Ellis said the same thing recently.
Yeah. And so, good. But, then Reince Priebus comes in and goes, we told you there was problems with this thing. Yeah. So let's read those because I want to react to that and then to the main news as well.
Yes. Reince Priebus taking a brief break from having to clean up Trump's latest mess, saying if everything was above board while Hillary Clinton ran the State Department as the Clintons had said, then why change a thing? But now that they have admitted there's a problem, the Clinton Foundation
hopefully they can build on it as this game continues to progress.
Should immediately and ties to terrorism, which is certainly true. And look, I despise him, but yeah, if they're not admitting that accepting the money while she's the president would be wrong, but they certainly admit that it seems like it'd be wrong. Well, if it seems like it's wrong while she's the president, then why in the 80 days leading up to it would it not be equally, at least seemingly wrong? It seems like, of course, that's potentially corrupting.
Well, if it's potentially corrupting when she's president and has to deal with other countries, it's also a little potentially corrupting when you're the Secretary of State and also have to deal with other countries.
But when you're between those jobs as well.
But first, let me just get out of the way criticizing the Republicans. So that's the thing. You ever give Republicans an inch, they're going to take a mile, right? So you're like, okay, we're going to stop the Clinton Foundation, foreign donations, corporate donations. They're like, we want more! I know, okay. In this case, they happen to be right, so I'm going to let it slide. And then Reince Priebus with, I can't believe they take money from these countries that have all this stuff. Your former president, George W. Bush, walked around Crawford in his ranch holding hands with the Saudi king, who was the one giving money to the Clinton Foundation. That's the guy you're talking about. George Bush nearly made out with him. So you live in a bit of a glass house, and so I'll take that talking point from you with a little less credibility than from other sources. But yes, of course it was a conflict of interest. And in the Boston Globe editorial, when they asking them to shut it down, they made a great point. They said, well, if these governments, foreign governments, and these giant corporations want to keep on giving, I'm sure they'll be driven by that same charitable nature. They will continue to give the same amount of money just to another charity. Which, they just left it at that. But the obvious
Sierra Club, they'll just
right. But the obvious implication of that is brilliant, which is, no, they're not doing it for charity. They're obviously doing it to have access to the Clintons for influence, which is the exact problem.
Yeah, and see what the Clintons have done here is they've taken the system of money and politics that they perfected here in America, and they've done it on a global scale. It's the same racket. It's played out with bigger states and literally with countries that print their own money. So they're funneling in millions of dollars into this country, into their own coffers for the Clinton Global Initiative.
and that they're paying themselves, and they're paying the expenses of all of their staff and all this other stuff too.
I gotta. That's such a great point, because what you might not get is like, because I didn't get it. Okay, so I guess they're trying to do something charitable. God bless their hearts on that front. It's a little corrupting, so I'm worried about that. I guess it's a mixed bag, but I'm like, why? Why do they want to, like, what's the, other than charity, what's the point? And it turns out, of course, there's a political point, because they get to put all their staff on there, and all their staff and all their loyalists get paid through the Clinton Foundation for years and years and years. So in their case, they're very rich. They don't need to set up a scam where they personally get enriched by the charity, which happens often in politics. But they get to house all of their staff and loyalists inside the Clinton Foundation. So I don't think that they're evil people and they don't care about the charity. I think that they care about the charity, check, right? And I get to have my political operation kind of ready to go here, check. And then meanwhile, I got to do a couple of favors for Kazakhstan and Saudi Arabia. I do favors with them anyway. Let's just move on with our lives.
It's a great small version of the strategy that she clearly has had for something like 15 plus years, where she has courted these people and helped these people out in their careers, helping out the state parties, usually just using them funnel money in her campaign. And she courts all these people and she sustains all these people, and so they remain loyal to her to do political, like, basically payback. And she did that for staffers. She kept basically a campaign staff just waiting to go in the wings.
It's an Oval Office staff. I mean, it's a government.
Also,
the size of it is that these people will move directly over into the administration once she gets elected, God willing, that Trump doesn't end up in the presidency.
Yeah. Guys, I gotta say, I hadn't thought of that. So part of the reason, now we just explained that I thought about how they were in waiting, but I hadn't realized, connected to this story, well, part of the reason they might be shutting it down is not out of the goodness of their heart, but they're expecting to move the staff to the White House. So to them, they think, oh, okay, guys, you win, we'll shut it down. Because you're about to have new jobs if these polling is correct on Trump versus me.
The Clinton Foundation does a lot of good charity work, and you guys sound like right wingers.
What percentage of their money is spent on programmatic work?
You know what? I don't have those figures at my fingertips, but they're doing great work. I've heard
for sure, and it's probably better than the Red Cross at this point, but they've done like 15% was spent on programs, is what I read today.
Really?
Yeah, and the rest is spent on staff and travel and expenses.
Away with that. Is that true?
Who's going to police them? This is international work, and there is no cop on the beat, man. And look, the definition of corruption isn't like evil people. I don't think they're evil people. It's that when good people do bad things, thinking it's normal, and that is the closest to it.
Yeah. Well, and also, it doesn't have to be either an evil corporation or Bill and Melinda Gates with a different surname. You can both of those things at the same time. It can do good charity work, and it can be designed to maintain a staff that she can call on when she runs for the presidency.
Yeah, I'm a good-natured person. I'm going with that. Yeah, I know Jimmy's a little more skeptical.
Listen, if you guys have any evidence of corruption, I'd like to see it.
I got one. We have a Swedish company, Ericsson, gives Bill Clinton $750,000 for a speech. That's their normal rate, like triple their normal rate. 7 days later, the State Department clears a deal where they've been dealing with repressive regimes and clears it for it, says it's fine, hands off. What does that tell you? I mean, that's quid pro quo.
Well,
And I have another example for you, Jimmy. So
he's not the Secretary of State, right?
Well, I'm sure they don't talk. It must have just happened. It's just a coincidence.
He gets to give speeches, right?
Just a coincidence.
You guys sound really like
you guys for Bernie? I think I might be second section.
You guys sound like Bernie.
Okay, let me read this other example because this is timely.
Full 50% of the audience will not know you're being sarcastic, but okay.
Exactly. They're like, why is Jimmy being a dick today? Anyway, this week, State Department officials have faced questions about the department's interest in purchasing land for a U.S. embassy in Lagos from Lebanese-Nigerian businessmen Ronald and Gilbert Chagori. Gilbert Chagori has donated more than $1 million to the Clinton Foundation, which also notes that the Chagori group, run by the brothers, pledged to commit $1 billion to fight coastal erosion. So that could potentially be a good thing. But they donated $1 million, and now the State Department, which Clinton had some relation with it, passed on a they might be buying land specifically from this businessman because that's the only land left in Lagos.
And that's the same guy that they sent panic emails about. Hey, this is a very important guy. Make sure that the State Department takes care of him. Yeah, and so those emails we now know about because they're in the press, so they're not in dispute anymore. That is a fact. So when Jimmy jokingly said, I mean, where's the evidence of corruption? When the guy gives money to the Clinton Foundation, then there's emails saying, make sure the State Department takes care of him. Hillary Clinton runs the State Department. This is not complicated. Yeah. So
I don't get it.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
All right.
Let's switch it up.
But the last thing I'll say on it is that it is a savvy move, though. Like they probably are going to move a lot of that staff into the Oval Office if they win as is expected for the moment being, and they get to say what issue. We already took care of it. What issue? What are you talking about? What more do you want me to do? We're not taking the foreign money. We're not taking the corporate money. Bill Clinton's not going to be part of Jesus Christ. These guys.
Yeah.
So, Jake, would you get up in public office so you can shut down Wolfpack?
Hey. That's my staff in waiting. Staff of 2.5 people now.
We're going to move those right over to your office.
Oh yeah, right there.
We're aggressive progressives, and we'll just move right in.
Yeah, and then so the overwhelming salaries that they get, they live in Hey, so you have my Pontiac Grand Am now?
I do, yeah. My car broke down. I'm actually driving it occasionally. It's been handy.
Has your dad contributed any money to the Wolfpack?
No, so yeah, through me, but yes, the
So you
Grand
can
Am.
take foreign money? That organization?
I don't know if you know this, but my dad's a citizen. And he did make volunteer calls in New Jersey, and we won in New Jersey. So
he's working for your organization. Your own father's on the payroll? What is going on? You guys are so corrupt over here.
I just want to know about the vetting process. I don't think anyone understands if he's really on our side.
Bet him harder.
Okay.
I regret what I just said.
Even 1% of the audience doesn't know she's being sarcastic. My dad's not on the payroll. Not remotely. In fact, he volunteers.
Pro my
Sure, I can vouch for it.
Pro gets allowed.
Okay. Oh, so imagine. You run the same scams they do. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I say let's at least try.
The Uger Global Initiative introduced today.
Oh, that would be funny. All right. Anyways, what's next, John?
Okay. This week's Trump campaign shakeup involved bringing on a couple of new faces to the campaign, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But Paul Manafort, the campaign chairman, we were told he was going to be staying on. That this wasn't like getting rid of people and replacing them. This was just adding, growing. And he stuck around for 2 days, and now he's gone. And so that did not take a long time, which makes their assurances early in the week seem a little bit ridiculous. Now, we do have a going-away statement from the Trump campaign saying, this morning Paul Manafort offered, and I accepted his resignation from the campaign. I love it. He offered it. He wanted me to have it. I didn't put any pressure on him whatsoever. I am very appreciative for his great work in helping to get us where we are today, and in particular his work guiding us through the delegate and convention process, especially because I have no idea what that process involves. Professional, and I wish him the greatest success. Well, isn't that nice? The timing seems a bit suspect, because generally I think that you should limit in 1 week to either getting rid of your career or possibly going down for your involvement in Ukrainian politics. And stoking protests that involves people throwing rocks at U.S. soldiers and setting the stage for pro-Putin forces to take over and Putin to largely control a significant portion of the country now. Do one or the other, basically. That's what I'm saying. And so he is now out. Now, we don't know. We're going to continue to track, obviously. If he did end up breaking laws involving bringing foreign money in to lobby U.S. government officials, he's still not cleared from that now. But some of the taint that would have gone on to Donald Trump will be cleared.
Yeah. So my favorite theory on this about bringing Bannon in, getting rid of Manafort, I think the Manafort thing is that half of the equation does have to do with Ukraine. It also has to do with the second half, which I'm going to get to in a second. But they mentioned some of the people around Trump, including Eric Trump, mentioned that his dad made the decision, which, by the way, sounds like he was fired rather than resign, and partly because of the troubles he's having with whether he did something illegal in Ukraine. And if the Trump people have problems with you, that you did something immoral, wow, okay. So those, investigations of Manafort might be quite significant.
Yeah, Eric Trump was so shocked at the news that he stopped sawing the head off an elephant.
Was that Eric or Donald Trump?
I think it was both. I think there's pictures of both of them, like holding up elephant
I thought it was a joke about the mascot of the Republican Party. Literally, I was like, "That's a really funny joke."
it worked multiple levels.
Yeah, that's right.
It rubbed off on me.
In a sense, that's kind of what their dad is doing right now.
Exactly.
Paul Manafort.
And then he leaves in Reince Priebus's bed.
If you look at it this way, so it was originally Corey Lewandowski, then Paul Manafort, now Bannon.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Manafort, who is a corrupt piece of whatever, barely cracks the top 3 horrible human beings to run this campaign. Those other 2 guys are way worse.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like, who's really running the show right now is Roger Ailes. You know, that's who's pulling the strings behind this. They're literally bringing on, like, a serial, like, essentially, like, molester to be running their campaign behind the curtain. That's who's running the show. It's not Banyan, and it's not Lewandowski or whatever her name is, Kellyanne. They're not running the show. It's Roger Ailes from Fox News, who just got booted for molesting like every woman who walked through.
You know why they hired Roger Ailes though? Because they couldn't get Bill Cosby for it, I guess.
No, but that's a great point by Jimmy. I mean, this is a murderer's row of like misfits and miscreants, and I mean, so I thought
we're gonna see Blagojevich next.
Right. I mean, but he would like be a major step up.
Yes.
So Lewandowski, like roughing people up. And
taking credentials away,
charges, intimidating the press, yelling at everybody, like a terror, right? And then they go to Manafort, who might have like a giant corruption scandal so bad that even Trump gets rid of him, right? Then they go to Bannon, who, according to his former employees, almost universally, is like the worst guy they've ever seen. Yeah. He's an absolute terror inside Breitbart, according to their reports, right? One of them said, attending a regular meeting at Breitbart News, led by Steve Bannon, was like attending a white supremacist rally. He said he would not stop, insulting every race, women. It goes just all the way down the list. Right. And then on top of all that, then you've got the serial molester, sexual harasser, Roger Ailes.
No, and on top of that, I don't know if you saw this. This is people say, "Oh, you guys just cover every bad thing about Trump." We're not even making a full story of this. One of his new foreign policy advisors. Did you see this news?
No.
He's apparently, like, all these quotes are coming out, massive Holocaust denier and anti-Semite.
Says who?
He's all. Says who? Says who?
Says who? Wait. Holes? Wait.
Says who? Yeah, he said that those ovens are way too small to kill 6 million Jews.
No, really?
And he's a foreign policy advisor.
Okay.
Now, in Trump's defense, Trump doesn't listen to his advisors. So
that's true. Yeah. Okay, so now let's go to the second half of this equation, which is, so this Bannon and Ailes, what is he up to? So I think it's a twofold strategy. Well, maybe 3, because he had to get rid of Manafort, so that's point 1. Point 2 is, screw it, we're down so much now, well, we might as well double down. In Turkish there's a saying, a sunk fish swims sideways. Just keep going in that same direction. We're already sunk. Let's see what happens. Now let Trump beat Trump. I don't know. We won the primaries that way. John makes a great point about that when we did the show together on Wednesday, which is he was already Trump. It's not like he ever pivoted, right?
Have you covered what Michael Moore has said? His theory about this is that. Have you covered it?
Yeah, I did. And so that gets to point 3, which is now there are significant rumors reported on by the New Yorker, among others, Vanity Fair, that this is all in setting up for a media operation after he loses.
Well, it looks like.
Yeah. So what Michael Moore pointed out was he said he had sources that knew that he was just using the presidential run to get a better contract with NBC on Apprentice, and then he, of course, bungled that, as he does with every business operation he's ever been involved in.
Yes.
Instead, they fired him. So then he's like, I guess I'm really running. I don't think this plot, the media plot, was throughout. It was in the beginning for NBC. That didn't work. Then he's like, oh my God, I'm winning. What the hell, right? And now that he sees he's about to, lose, and fairly significantly if the polling is accurate right now, so he's like, oh, well, the great thing about media is you don't need to win 51% of the vote. Fox News makes $1.5 billion in profit every year, and their top-rated show, Bill O'Reilly, has an audience of, on a best night,
Parish
3
Doctor
million
is
people.
now up to
That's
date.
about 1% of the population. Right? All you need is 1% of the population to be enormously rich. So now he thinks, people are like, they don't get it. They're like, Steve Bannon has never run a political operation. He's just a media guy. Roger Ailes is a media guy. Oh, so, and the reason it's in the loser Donald segment is because he's such a loser. He already knows he lost.
Yeah.
This is him going, so what?
I'll just turn it into any other scam where I try to make money off of it anyway.
Right, but he's like a master of adaptation. You got to give him credit for that, right? He's looking at this situation and going, well, I may not win the presidency, but what can I turn this into? What can I spin it into, right? So turn it into a media empire. I think it's inherently his limitation. I think it's why he's losing so bad in the campaign is he looks at it like it's a business. This isn't business. You're not looking for 30% market share, which he's dominating right now. He gets 30%. They show up to his rallies. They're excited. But he's not going to get to 50% plus one, which is what you need to win an election, right? On the other hand, he's totally playing a different game than anybody else in American politics today. And you got to be careful with that. You can look at an article by Malcolm Gladwell, How Davids Beat Goliaths, and it tells you what you got to do is innovate and play by a different set of rules. That's how you can take down Goliaths if you're David. And right now Trump's David, and he is definitely playing a different game than Hillary Clinton.
So that's a good point, Ryan. But and I thought that Donald Trump had a chance of winning. I mean, as recently as 2 weeks ago when I was on ABC's This Week, I had him right after the convention, still up slightly. Boy, has that changed in 2 weeks, and partly because of all the things that he's done. And I thought, if anybody's going to beat an establishment Democrat, you need a wild card, and Trump's a wild card, and so by playing by different rules, he might win. But then, as I've studied Donald Trump's history, I've been forced to because of this campaign, and I've done enough of these Loser Donald segments, I know his pattern. Here's how it goes. He does something spectacular. He puts his name in big lights, and he opens up 3 casinos at once. He gets all this attention. He gets this money because his dad already had money and had given him a line of credit and all this stuff. And then it looks like it's working for a while. You're like, oh my God, he's dominating Atlantic City, and look at all the towers, and he goes, but then he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And it always crashes at the end. That's why none of his products exist. That's why there's no Trump steaks, there's no Trump water, there's no Trump planes, there's no Atlantic City left. He doesn't have any of those casinos. He's gone bankrupt 6 times. So same thing on this presidential run. Like, oh, hey, wait a minute, look, he got all that name, attention, Trump, and that helped him to win the primary. And then he gets into the general election, boom, runs into a brick wall because of his own incompetence, which will be the same exact thing that happens with this so-called media empire that they want to build. It will launch, this is my guess, right? And it great fanfare, and everybody will talk about Trump, and in the beginning it'll look like it's succeeding, and oh my God, there'll be 1,000 articles written about what a genius business boy it was, and the brand name, and all this stuff, and then eventually, no one will watch. You know why? Because this clown's going to put himself on. And this is another segment I did on Loser Donald. He originally wanted to go into entertainment, but he couldn't get into USC. And then he tried to finance a Broadway play, and that failed. He's been dying to get into entertainment his whole life, and he's been failing his whole life.
He was on The Apprentice, and you got to admit, that was successful.
Yes. And I mentioned that in that segment. Yeah. I mentioned that in that segment. The one success he had was Apprentice, where his whole thing was, you're fired, right? That's his catchphrase, etc. And give him credit for that, and it had a really nice run.
Yeah, so, and he's great at fucking over people, you know? I mean, he's a magician at that.
That's right. But remember, he didn't run Apprentice. He was the host on Apprentice.
Yes.
If he was running it as a company, no way it would have worked. I know the really smart people who worked on Apprentice. It was largely them. He was fine as a clown, as a character on that show. He played a nice clown.
Yeah.
And so, but if he's going to go and try to do like a talk show, people in the beginning will be like, oh, Trump, let's look at his empty podium or whatever, right? And on minute 17, they're going to be like, and certainly on day 17, they're going to be like, he's still saying the same stupid things.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have interest in other people, which is what you need as a talk show host. So if he tries to do that, it will just be about him, and it will be a wreck. But they're going to do something, and I wonder what it's going to be.
And by the way, we saw this with Sarah Palin. She started Sarah TV.
Oh, that's right. How'd that do?
Destroyed. She did a couple of vlogs. It was really weird and creepy. And now, what's Sarah TV?
People paid for that, right? Was it $10?
Yeah, I think that there was an online membership program. But how could those ever work?
But by the way, hold on. So I know through people in the industry that the people who started that Sarah TV stuff use the Young Turks as a model. And I know that Breitbart as an organization has been complimentary of us, so bless their hearts on that, although we wildly disagree, right? And so everybody uses this model, and they think, oh, it's easy. Young Turks do it. You just get on there and blah, 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 and then you know. No. Like, we have a subscription because we offer a lot of shows to people. We offer them something that they're missing, an outsider perspective that's anti-establishment. There's a thing here. There's a thing we do that people like.
Subliminal messaging.
Right, that's... I can do it. Okay. It's not very subliminal. TYTnetwork.com/join. screwing up right now. It's not subliminal at all. Okay, so we met a market need, which was, to the best of our ability, truth telling. We have a whole set of hosts. It's a real company, but consumers don't know how to run real companies. They're like, oh, I don't know, we'll just do the same thing. Sarah, go out there. Oh, and I'll be joining and TVing and doing all these things, right? And everybody's like, oh, nobody wants to watch it. Nobody's going to pay for that, right? And then they go out of business. Look at the Blazers in massive trouble. So I'm telling you, when this Trump so-called media empire starts, it'll start with a bang and it'll end with a thistle, like they all do.
Should we take our first break? Have a go.
Okay. All right. God bless. When we come back, Trump says he's sorry, but we have no idea what he's sorry for. That's such a funny story. I want to tell you all about that. And then the sad story, unfortunately, of the Border Patrol and what they're doing with immigrants in this country. All right. We'll be right back. All right. Post-game here in Studio It's a green screen, magical internet television. A lot of contemplation stories. Any conversation that says marriage is an interesting thing deserves a little bit of.
When the kid cries, perhaps that's the that is an opportunity to do so. It's an opportunity to do some parenting.
Yeah, parenting is you cry, you're gone.
Oh my God.
I love that video.
Yeah, Dad, I got a great eye. Chew. You're like, my mouth is open. She sneezed in my eye.
I used to have donut tower next to my desk. Yeah, I'll dress up like a girl.
I sound confident now, Anna.
Yeah.
When we're off the air, I'm going to be like, how is this going to work?
When you get there where you ask why, 21 straight times.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you're fucking,
right? So I dumped the kids off at her mom's, and I drove down to La Jolla for a day.
Get out, kids.
They're like, but Daddy, no.
Why?
What do you mean, why? You asked me to look at you. You did it. You brought it up. You know you're doing it. Why? I don't know why. I was reading.
It's lovely. Here's what's different. Like, it is a different feeling. Everybody says this, but it's 5:11 when we're shooting this. I can't wait to go home. Like that. I can't wait to see it.
What you guys do is allow us to be open and honest, and we don't have to worry about censorship. We don't have to worry about sponsors telling us what we can and can't say. We're accountable by our audience and our audience only, and I absolutely love that. That's the best part about being a member. We love you guys.
We're not freaking out. We're not freaking out.
not in the mood for that.
I like everybody's focusing on the apology part. I liked the beginning though, where he acknowledged, and he's totally right, that sometimes you don't have time to be put.
You know how long? Let's think of one little thing. How much longer does it take to say African American than it does to say the other word?
Oh, I thought you were going to say when he said in the crowd, "That's my African American." See, you added a word there. Okay, so now my favorite part of this is Kellyanne Conway, who's now basically his campaign manager. She's not the CEO, that's Steve Bannon. Was offended by anything he said. That's amazing. So one, we're not actually going to apologize for any specific thing. Yeah. Two, he said so many offensive things. We're doing a carte blanche apology for everything he's ever said, and just pick him. Whatever you were offended by, he apologizes for that. But if, for example, if you're a part of a minority group that he offended, but you like when he offends other minority groups, okay, then he's not apologizing for that part. He's only apologizing for your part. Okay, just feel free to interpret it any way you like. And then
can we show a little bit of the Kellyanne Conway, actually?
Yes.
Because she now works for the Trump campaign, so her main job is going on TV and being forced to lie to cover him. And you're going to see that about the origins of this new tactics campaign.
He was talking about anyone who feels offended by anything he said, and that's all him. He took extra time yesterday going over that speech with a pen. So that was a decision he made. Those are his words. And I hope that everybody who's criticized him at some point, David, for being insensitive or for mocking someone, at least show some recognition and some forgiveness.
Why the regret now? Some people might say, was that you?
It was not me. That's all Donald Trump. He's the candidate here. I'm not.
But why the regret now?
Well, it's an expression of regret. Perhaps he felt it before, but he expressed it now.
Yeah, he just did it 48 hours after totally changing his entire campaign style.
I love that.
Shake up.
Perhaps he felt it before. He's just expressing it now that he's on a teleprompter with the speech I wrote.
Perhaps he felt it before. Perhaps. Maybe he feels it now, but probably not.
Donald Trump kind of reminds me of like Hunter S. Thompson, if you got him to run for office, right? And he's just complete, and he was a racist bigot. He was stream of consciousness, just antagonizing everyone. And then every once in a while, you get Hunter sober, and he'd be talking, and you'd be like, oh, this isn't really funny anymore. He's not on acid, And that's how I feel about Donald Trump when he has these moments of clarity.
I just want to go back to it does take a lot of time to be politically correct. Mm-hmm. It does take, for instance, I used to say Irish American, and then I shortened it up. I just say Mick, right? Now, that's about an extra 2 seconds it takes you to say Irish American or Mick. Now, what do I do with that extra 2 seconds? You say it's just 2 seconds. Yeah, but over a month, that adds up, right? And that's an extra 30 minutes a month. And what do I do with that time? I get a massage.
Time well spent. See, there's sometimes there's small tics that people have when they're lying. Mm-hmm. So when she gets asked questions on a rapid fire, Kellyanne, is it? Yeah. So when he asked her, okay, so what was it? And she goes, oh, no, that was him himself. He had a pen last night. Why do you talk about the pen on the paper? Small details that you don't need. We don't need to know that he had a pen and he's writing the paper. Just no, he did it himself last night. That's why I'm doing it.
He had a pen.
But then he had a pen.
That's the extra added detail that reveals their lying.
Absolutely.
And by the way, imagine if President Obama had to script out in a teleprompter, I'm sorry I hurt people's feelings. They would attack him.
Oh, the apology
tour. And all the teleprompters, so pathetic, to be honest. Anyway, okay, photos have now been released showing some of the horrific conditions inside certain Arizona area border detention centers. We're going to have some details about these, but first we want to show you some of the photos. Hopefully you'll be able to tell from these exactly what's going on. You're seeing there people sitting on benches, sitting on concrete, laying down, wrapped in mylar sheets and things like that. That looks like a morgue, but it's actually people sleeping so tightly packed together that they can't move, wrapped in those sheets, because it gets extremely cold, and those plastic sheets are in some cases the only protection from the elements they actually have. Seeing it there too, laid out on the benches, laid out on the floor.
It looks like what in that episode of Better Call Saul, the brother, if you guys have watched that, he wraps himself in that. The conspiracy theorists of the world are going to be like, we knew it. There's the FEMA camps, right? Right.
It looks like footage from Iraq, like corpses are just being like held in a prison or something.
Yeah. So the reality, of course, is not the insane conspiracy theory, oh, they're going to round us all up. No, we've been rounding up the immigrants for a long, long time. And just because you didn't see where we put them doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's why the Border Patrol was so insistent on fighting to make sure that these pictures never got seen.
Yeah.
Well, look, if somebody fights to make sure that you don't see something, well, that's interesting. There might be something there. Look, it's your private stuff. That's your business. But the government works for us. We pay their wages, and they represent us.
Yeah.
So they don't get to say, no, you don't get to see what we're doing here with your money and in your name. Of course we get to see. That's why we finally got to see the pictures, and it doesn't look pretty.
Yeah, so we have to give credit to Judge David C. Burry during the discovery process in the court case that's going on right now. He allowed video surveillance to be released. Then some of the legal and civil rights groups went through those thousands of hours of video and culled out photos showing some of the most horrific abuses. And as I said early on, most of the footage comes from southeast Arizona. So this isn't necessarily representative of all of the detention centers, but at least some. We want to give you a little bit of information about what happened in the tapes that we didn't necessarily weren't able to show. Some photographs show migrants lying shoulder to shoulder on bare concrete floors while neighboring cells are empty, sleeping pads stacked against walls. That's perhaps insult to injury, that they're cramming people into small areas and not giving them sleeping pads, even though there's empty areas that have sleeping pads.
No, why would they do that?
Because they're assholes.
Is that just to be an asshole? They see these people, these immigrants, as less than human. They're not as good as them. The people, these are poor people from another country who are dirty and they don't speak English, so we can treat them less than human. That's what that is.
That seems like that's what.
Yeah, and look, we're not talking about prisons or detention centers. We're talking about gulags, right, in this country. And there are people that get ripped out of the hands of their children every day in this country. They get disappeared. Their kids go and live with their neighbors or their relatives that are in this country. And they go to these camps and they get shuffled around and they get stuffed in like sardines into these cells, right? Treated inhumanly. I remember I interviewed a woman who went through this process, who actually got detained and deported. And she said that when the Red Cross came and gave them soap for the first time in weeks, that they cried. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way we're treating people in this country right now. And what I want you to know out there is, if they'll do this to immigrants and get away with it, then, like, pretty soon they're knocking on your door for some reason, too. You know, I went to the Holocaust Museum with my brother, and if somebody like Trump gets elected, you know, we're heading down that path. Like, the first people they put in detention camps were political dissidents. That's who they put in the first concentration camps, right? And then they put people like gypsies and, you know, homosexuals and then Jews, right? And so there's a whole bunch of people that end up like that. And if they can do that to anybody in this country, be careful, because they might knock on the door for you.
And this is before Trump comes in. I mean, so let's
under Obama.
So let's just call it what it is, because the Democrats give you pretty talk, but then Obama broke the record for deportations of undocumented immigrants, and these conditions. And look, under Trump, it might be a hell of a lot worse. He promises that it'll be a hell of a lot worse. And, you know, my takeaway from the Holocaust museums I've gone to is they never believed it. Like, as it was happening, they're like, no, he's not really going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever fascist government was coming into power. No. And there's, like, old articles you see where they say they believe that this is an appeal to, you know, populism, but the government won't actually do that, right? Or the candidate won't actually do that. Now, okay, but let's focus on today, because this isn't on Trump. This is under the Obama administration. So, look, to Ryan's point, number of suicide attempts because of how bad it is. There's been 18 people that have died in ICE facilities because of medical neglect. So, now, are these people that are running these facilities, in this case, this particular story is about Customs and Border Protection. So, and there's a couple of different places that they go to. 62% of them are private prisons. The Justice Department just said that they're going to get rid of the private prisons, but that does not necessarily affect some of the weak. And then this gets released right
There had been an ongoing analysis of the outcomes of private prison.
That's right. The only thing,
so it could be it could be a mixture of different things.
that's right, and it might be that they were heading in that direction anyway, but they hurried up the press release on it, knowing that this news is also going to come out. And we don't know that.
And it definitely came out of nowhere for the Corrections Corporation of America, who runs all these private prisons, right? Their stock, tanked 50%. They had to halt their stock. It's the people who run all the private prisons for profit in this country. Their stock dropped 50%, within a matter of minutes. So I'm sure they would have gotten advanced word if there was going to be a slow rollout through some administrative process. It seemed like it came out of nowhere.
So in this case, Customs and Border Protection is supposed to just keep these guys and then, for a small period of time and then move them.
Up to 12 hours.
Yes. And they're not supposed to be there overnight. But oftentimes they're there overnight.
Yeah, but only 80% of those between September of 2014 and August of 2015. Only 80% were held for more than a day.
And so then you've got these conditions where nobody's getting a shower. People ask for bathroom breaks, don't necessarily get them. Everybody's lying together. Everybody's lying on concrete. The women and kids are also on concrete. And then when they ask for medical help, they don't get it. That's why those 18 died under ice, which is slightly different. But it's the same idea here that unites them all. And so why do they do it? Well, look, one political possibility is that some knucklehead somewhere up the chain thinks, well, this will provide a disincentive. Then they'll know not to come back here. I mean, believe me, that there are right-wingers who'd be like, yeah, of course, yes, that's right. But that's not how it works. And what's the message we're sending to the rest of the world? I mean, give us your poor, you're tired, and we will greatly mistreat them under horrible conditions where some of them will die. That's not what the Statue of Liberty says. But the second reason is human nature. We all know the Stanford prison experiment. You put some people as guards, and you put some people as prisoners, and no matter what the situation in the Stanford prison experiment, they all knew that no one had done anything wrong. They knew it was an experiment, and they were Stanford students. And immediately, the guards started abusing the inmates. And the inmates started taking it, having a sense of inferiority, and then acting according to their role, and then having rage, and then the guards make it worse. And you know what happens? This happens at the end. We all live in a Stanford prison experiment, okay? And yet we never learn. So you tell the guards, these are the least powerful people on the planet. They have no power at all. There's no chance you're ever going to get in trouble for any of this. None of them are connected to a judge. None of them are connected to a politician. None of them are connected to any power. Do whatever you want. This is the result you get.
And the Emerald Lazarus poem that you quoted before, open our doors and let them in, and we'll be kind to them and we'll integrate them. But I think what it actually means is those people are going to come in, and they're the baddest ass people from around the world, right? They're brave enough to march through a desert to get somewhere better so they can raise their family in an awesome place, And people have been doing this for millennia. This is what people do. They move to a better place to provide, for themselves and their family and send their kids to a decent school, right? And that's what makes America awesome. That's what that means on the Statue of Liberty. It doesn't mean we're so generous. It means, no, those are the people we want. That we want the badasses from all around the world. We want them right here in this country, and we're going to build one hell of a country if we have all those people coming to our shores right here.
Yeah, the fighters, the warriors, the ones who, go the extra mile, in this case, literally, to provide for their family and to look for that American dream. And they shouldn't be forced to live in an American nightmare.
Right. And they say in Central America, the brave ones lead. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. So we get the bravest and the hardest working and the most intelligent people from everywhere. It's awesome.
But, we pretend that we have a culture that respects life. We don't. We don't respect life. We sanction state killing of our own citizens, even though we know that most of the people we kill are poor. A lot of them are innocent. They don't have the right representation. So we don't respect life. We don't respect the Constitution. We got rid of habeas corpus, right? So now the thing that they put in the Magna Carta, right, in the 1500s, we don't even have that kind of liberty anymore in America. Now the government can lock you up without charging you indefinitely. So we're operating on a liberty view from somewhere around the 1100s. We don't respect human rights. We don't respect civil rights. We used to be the country that we were proud of our system of law in America. We were proud of our values, meaning we would export civil rights and human rights to the rest of the world. We no longer do that anymore. What we export all the time now is torture, We export drone killings. We export illegal wars. And then the people who reveal that we did all that shit illegally here at home, we then torture them in our own prisons. And now we're torturing immigrants. And if you don't think what we do to other people overseas is exactly what we're going to do to ourselves at home, you're wrong, because we are. We don't have I sound like a right-winger a little bit, or a conservative Christian when I say we need a culture that respects life. And we do need a culture that respects life and the dignity of human beings. They respect the dignity of fetuses, but they don't respect the dignity of actual human beings.
Indeed. Well put, Jim. All right, we do have time for one more source.
Okay. Yeah, I saw this other graphic. I wasn't sure if we needed to do that. Okay, let's jump into this. This is interesting. I like big numbers. I think that we've suspected for a long time that any sort of accounting that's going on in the military is probably suspect. We see such large sums of money. We hear about huge sums of money going missing in Iraq and all of that. Money just getting thrown around. It turns out it's actually worse than we thought. The Defense Department's Inspector General in a June report said the Army made $2.8 trillion in wrongful adjustments to accounting entries in 1 quarter alone in 2015 and $6.5 trillion for the year. Yet the Army lacked receipts and invoices to support those numbers, or they simply made them up. So that's a huge amount of money, obviously far larger than even the military's budget for 1 year, for several years, for multiple years. And this doesn't mean that 2.8 trillion simply disappeared in 1 quarter, but it does mean that different registers of numbers of supplies or vehicles or ammunition didn't match up, and so they simply changed one of the numbers, or they don't know how much money was budgeted to one area, or the files, as you're going to see, were simply lost. And the reason the numbers get so big is that has a ripple effect. That when there's a mistake at one level of the chain of the accounting that happens at various parts of in the military, that you then have a ripple effect down below that. And the problems never actually get solved, they simply get covered up. And it's become almost institutionalized throughout the Army and the rest of the military to do that. Now, this report that I referenced concluded that forced adjustments rendered the statements useless because DoD and the Army managers could not rely on the data in their accounting systems when making management and resource decisions. Decisions that, of course, still need to be made. We simply don't have any fiscal information to base those decisions on, or certainly not information that we can actually trust. And for years, the Inspector General has inserted a disclaimer on all military annual reports. The accounting is so unreliable that the basic financial statements may have undetected misstatements that are both material and pervasive. That's the level of the Inspector General, but it goes all the way down to the bottom. Some employees of the Defense Finance and Accounting Services, which handles a wide range of Defense Department accounting services, referred sardonically to preparation of the Army's year-end statements as the grand plug. Plug is accounting jargon for inserting made-up numbers.
If you say so.
That's exactly what it is, I guess. And in addition, this number, as big as those trillions of dollars is, this number scares me even more. DFAS also could not make accurate year-end Army financial statements because more than 16,000 financial data files had vanished from its computer system. Faulty computer programming and employees' inability to detect the flaw were at fault. Or perhaps, in some cases, their need to cover up the fact that those numbers were all just invented out of whole cloth.
And they blame Hillary Clinton for missing emails. Now that's a lot of missing emails.
I'm going to say something crazy. They're both wrong.
Yes, that's exactly right. Okay, so to me, the number that I'm most both amused and disheartened by is the spokesman for the military downplayed the significance of the improper changes, saying that when you net out all the different things that John was talking about, all the different journal entries, it's not the trillions of dollars, that the real problem was only $62.4 billion. And they did not say it with a wink. They weren't sarcastic. They really believe, that's only a $62 billion problem. So that waste in the United States military is unbelievable. And by the way,
fund many countries' militaries, just the way.
Could fund many countries. I mean, look, the budget, the entire budget for America is like $3.9 trillion, right? So when we're talking about $62 billion or $6 trillion, like unaccounted for, you're talking about the equivalent of the United States budget plus some. You know what I mean? That's what we need to be put in perspective. But the good news about this story is that this is actually progress. The Pentagon, since forever, was unaudited. They didn't even get an audit. Every government program, every government agency gets audited. And until this guy, Chuck Spinney, who's quoted in this article, came out in the 1980s with the Military Reform Caucus and said, hey, we need to audit the Pentagon. It took them like 30-some years to actually get an audit. So at least it's the first step, and we're getting some accountability from the Pentagon about where we're spending our money.
Conservatives, you don't like big government? This is big government. So, like, the one place, which is the biggest government program we have, the United States military, you're saying, generally speaking, a lot of right-wingers are like, oh, no. We need the military budget. We need to be larger. Don't even look into it. Well, we don't want to waste taxpayer money. Of course you should look into it. And it is irrespective of whether you think the military budget should be large or small. It doesn't have anything to do with that. I just don't want them losing $62 billion. Yeah. You shouldn't want that. That's your taxpayer money. Where the hell is that going? And by the way, I have an answer for you. A lot of it is going to defense contractors, and they're getting super rich off of it. That's why they don't want you to look into it. That's why they don't want you to do accounting. Oh, look at those billions of dollars that slipped through the cracks and into the, crony capitalists that are the defense contractors.
The richest zip code in America isn't 90210, like right out here in California. It's actually the Virginia suburb of Washington, D.C., where most of the military contractors live. Isn't that crazy? That's the number one richest zip code in the entire country where the military contractors live. Now we know why.
Yeah. Well, I just get so sad when I think about the $62 billion. Can you imagine how much we could fuck up Syria with $62 billion? There could be no more Syria. No Syria at all. We could bomb it to nothingness.
And it's crazy, and some people want to take that money and waste it like on education.
That's almost exactly how much Bernie Sanders' plan would cost to send all kids to 4 years of tuition-free college.
People also forget what happened on. People remember what happened on 9/11, 2001. People don't remember what happened on 9/10, 2001. You remember what happened on 9/10, 2001?
What happened?
That's when Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference and admitted that the Pentagon could not account for $2.3 trillion. Yeah. $2.3 trillion. Didn't know where it went. It was just gone, right? But I bet there's some poor people watching a flat screen. We better go kick their ass. Yeah. $2.3 trillion. That could fund college for everybody forever. That could fund healthcare for everybody. But $2.3 trillion just disappeared the day before 9/11. Isn't that interesting?
So I don't know if that's interesting or not about the timing. I do know that the number is maddening. And if you're a conservative, you're a liberal, you're independent, it doesn't matter. That's your money. And everybody has to be held accountable, not just the people on welfare. I mean, they're directing you all of your ire at the most powerless people in the country while they walk away with billions and in some cases trillions of dollars and tell you, no, don't look here. Don't look at all the money that we're taking in the largest government program there is, and with almost no accountability. And by the way, I just got rid of 16,000 files you'll never see. God knows what was in them. Maybe it was an accident because it's a giant bureaucracy with a lot of screw-ups, or maybe it wasn't an accident. While you're over there worried about Hillary Clinton or a made-up scandal like the IRS scandal, so that they can make sure that their rich friends don't get audited, right? Meanwhile, they're doing the greatest American robbery we've ever seen, and you're worried about the powerless people in the country. We spent a couple of million wrong on welfare. There's a couple of trillion in the other direction. Pay attention. And by the way, it's okay to pay attention to both. But if you're going to prioritize, this is the much bigger deal.
I also, the other thing this gives me hope about is knowing how long ago they started that fight, right? And how it's manifested now. You can see Chuck Spinney, the guy that's Franklin Spinney in this article, on the front of Time magazine in the 1980s, sitting in a congressional hearing, say, we got to audit the Pentagon. We got to audit the Army and the Armed Forces. And now, 30-some years later, it's actually coming to fruition. It's actually happening. And for me, it's hopeful as somebody who works in politics, right? That sometimes these fights are hard and long, but they're really meaningful. $2 trillion is half the federal budget. What can we do with all that money? And it starts with somebody speaking out and speaking up and doing something about it. And that's why I think people like Chuck Spinney and Boyd, who is his kind of mentor, if you're in Wolfpack, you might have heard me talk about Colonel John Boyd. Those people actually planted the seeds that are now growing into this tree that we're going to live under because we're going to fix this problem. Right now that it can't survive when it's in the sunlight. It can only live in the darkness. And right now we're just seeing that kind of transition point. So I'm hopeful.
Well, that's why, when I talk about Wolfpack and we all work on it, that's what we're talking about. It's bipartisan, man. The corruption is bipartisan, the solution is bipartisan, and so whether you consider it big government, crony capitalism, or you consider, the terrible Pentagon, it doesn't matter what your perspective is. It's all of our money, and we need to hold them to account because they work for us to make sure that we get that money back and we do government the way we're supposed to.
Wolf-back.com.
wolf-pack.com. Okay.
Network.com/join.
Okay, I'm actually going to give one more website because we're done with the first hour. AmericasTakeAction.com. Ryan is now the president of that organization, AmericasTakeAction.com. So that's Wolfpack's bipartisan. Americans Take Action is more progressive, and so they're going to work on a number of issues. Go check it out on the website. It's a great, great organization. And John, thank you. Everybody check out Think Tank, and we're going to be back with the second hour. And there's a lot of huge controversy. So we had a lot of serious stories here. In the second hour, well, socially interesting stories about Amy Schumer. Does she have to fire somebody who's working for her who's making light of rape?
Will our coverage today piss her off?
Okay.
Find out.
And okay, and then that dude on The Voice, the country guy. Blake Shelton. He's making fun of. He's making gay jokes. Is that a fireable offense?
Yes.
Well, all right, Ryan's very clear. That's why he runs Progressive Group.
We don't need to do the videos now.
Okay, we'll be right back with all those stories. Thank you, guys.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're going to help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa! Democracy!
United!
We are!
We are!
Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you can be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy. 96% of Americans want it. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Let's go get them, man. Up and at 'em. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com.
Damn it, they failed us! And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong! Because you should be angry! Young Turks!
If it was genuine, he was bad. Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
I just remember thinking, what is this guy's name?
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
We're the TV station, this says.
The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It's right out of like Wayne's World. This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power. We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world. We're celebrating our 1 billionth view. We're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment. And Phil and host meet CNN headliners goodbye. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a long lesson. Shut up.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him. He says to me, you won't believe the meeting that I just had.
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air. Cenk took an incredible risk. We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media.
The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what you did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, to be the biggest talk show host in the country? I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing an actual show. I guarantee it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's always these weird cream cheese options. I never just find the plain. What about salmon? Do I look like grizzly bear? Here, try this veggie. Here's the plain. Where is it? You're more of a grape drink kind of guy, right? Or try this mouthwash. Where's the plain? Do you like sexual healing? Where is the plane? Where's the plane? Where's the plane? Where is it? Where's the plane? Dude. Anna Raspberry. No, I want the plane. Supervisor, Aren't you the supervisor? Isn't the whole point of being supervisor? Why do you get to decide my cream cheese options? At what point do you decide there'd be no plain cream cheese? I don't understand it. Take it easy, man. No, this is true just like with politics and anything else. If we don't stand up for ourselves, they're just gonna fuck us even harder. You're not gonna believe this. They kicked me out of the kitchen.
Alright, back on the Young Turks. Are we dropping it again? It's a new power panel, it says. Okay, Jesus, if you got it, drop it. No, we don't have it. I can't see it. Okay, you got it. Power panel. Oh, there's a blah, 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 blah. Okay, Grace, Jimmy, Josh Reps is back, everybody. Hey.
Jake's been dropping acid during the break.
Well, yeah, throughout. So you guys know Josh. He's been on before. He's got We the People Live podcast. He was one of the original hosts and producers of HuffPost Live. Grace, it's always good to have you on as well.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've been on with you, and I just met Jimmy. So this is actually a big moment for me.
That was mind-blowing. That was like TYT Worlds colliding. I did not know that you guys had never met.
I think our paths have never actually crossed, because I'll be here to do Pop Trigger in the morning, and then you'll come in the evening, and...
I didn't know that anyone in the world didn't know Jimmy Dore. I thought
I knew of Jimmy Dore.
Of course.
Right. But this is an honor to meet them.
You guys all shut up, please.
Hey, I was gonna be like, you guys just play it cool. This is a really big moment. Don't embarrass me, Jack. Okay.
Would you like me to sign a vial of my sweat for you later? I carry it.
Kept right in there, I bet.
Are those guys sponsoring you now? Sweaty balls or fresh balls?
Fresh balls.
Fresh balls.
We're working something out.
Okay, all right. It's a literal thing.
They did contact me.
They contacted you, right? You went on a pro fresh balls rant.
Let me tell you something. I am fresh all under. And now I know you're from down under. Not the same thing.
I am from down under, but I also got to say it's nice being out here in California, because you know how when it's really cold out east and everyone in California is smug because it's so warm here. Well, it's also nicer in summer because it's cooler here now.
That's
and you want to talk about sweaty balls? Try being in New York right now.
Yeah.
It is, it's like 110 degrees and the humidity is 99, and every ball in that city is
wet.
wet.
Speaking of sweaty balls, I've never felt like more of a lesbian. Boy, did I make a good choice.
Okay, and by the way, you're right. Ryan said the same thing. He's like, man, I forgot that the other upside of LA is the summer.
It's just always nice.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, let me read a couple of tweets, and then we'll move on. Grace will give us the stories. Booty Slice writes in, of course, you're referring to Trump's speech. Of course, it was on a teleprompter. That's the only way you can get Trump to apologize when someone else writes the apology for him. That's right. Dave's Gone Mad writes in, wow, I thought Australia treated their asylum seekers badly.
What the?
But once again, America gets to say, we're number one. USA, USA. That was on an immigration story that we did in the first hour. Crazy Nate says, so let me see if I've got this right. We're basically giving the military a series of blank checks with no spending accountability. Yeah, and they call you Crazy Nate. And finally, Ray for Madness says, and then you have homeless veterans committing suicide all over the place. $62 billion might help with that. Yes. We wish they hadn't lost that. Okay. One more thing, Grace, before we get going.
Yeah.
Our membership drive, which is going to last approximately forever, we're trying to get to 23. I wanted to get to 23,000 like 2 days ago, and it turns out that was not an achievable goal. We're now at 22,939. For God's sake, can I see 23,000? You guys are killing me.
Oh my God, that's such a tease.
I know. The tytnetwork.com/join. There's going to be exciting new shows coming up. Maybe as early as next week. Jack's going to kill me. I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not promising it. But it might involve somebody here who's who would like to go a little further left. Okay, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying tytnetwork.com/join. Okay.
Hashtag sweaty balls.
All right, Grace, forward.
All right, here we go. The CDC has confirmed that the Zika virus is now actively spreading in Miami Beach. This Friday, Governor Rick Scott issued a statement saying, quote, we believe we have a new area where local transmissions are occurring in Miami Beach. He goes on to say the suspect zone covers 1.5 square miles between 8th and 28th Streets and between the beach and the Intracoastal Waterway, a stretch that encompasses the city's central tourist area. So this is a concern because this is a very tourist-heavy population. Health officials have confirmed, they said at least 5 people have been infected with the Zika there, including 2 who live in Miami Beach, 1 person from Texas, one from New York, and another from Taiwan. Each have returned home but were infected while traveling in Miami. So again, the CDC is issuing a travel advisory, especially for pregnant women, that you should avoid these designated areas in Miami Beach. Oh man, this sucked to read. I don't know how you guys felt about this news.
So, a couple of thoughts. One is, I love Miami. I go there every year for a conference, but largely for vacation.
I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Like, are we supposed to infer exactly what you're talking about?
I went immediately like, Jenka's a drug dealer.
Yeah, that was exactly what I went to, a Colombian conference.
No, it's worse. It's a television conference.
Okay.
No.
These drugs would be interesting.
For the benefit of my wife. No, honey, I'm working hard down there in Miami. But she knows. Anyway, sorry, Nappy. Of course, I love your conference. I'll be there next year. Unless Zika is a problem. Okay, so now we don't plan on getting pregnant again, so Zika shouldn't affect me that much, but I'm still a little freaked out by it. And they were trying to pretend that this did not affect the Miami Beach. They're like, oh, it's like originally they were like, oh, it's the Wynwood. Nobody goes to Wynwood. Like, don't worry about it. It's mosquitoes. They'll never fly over to Miami Beach. Like,
I also love.
But they said that. They said, oh no, mosquitoes don't fly. They don't travel that much. Like, then how did they get there?
Also, despite the fact that this is actually mosquito season right now. Like, that's what they're in the midst of.
When you were just reading that, I loved the geographical specificity that the governor said. He was like, between 8th and 28th Street. No mosquito ever travels between, like, 7th and 8th Street.
Yeah.
That never happens.
They never go all the way down to 7th.
I mean, I would go all the way to 6th Street just to be safe. That's right. The reason why this is so upsetting to me is because I remember doing stories last summer, in fact, like prior to that, about the inevitability of Zika coming here. And there were scientists, and we're actually pretty good at this stuff. We're pretty good at predicting the patterns of diseases, and we're pretty good at the epidemiology of all that. And they were saying, all we need to do is throw a lot of money at it right now, and we'll be able to get a handle on it, and there are all kinds of things that we can do to prevent it. Republicans blocked that spending in Congress, so it didn't go through, and now we are seeing, it's like just a predictable slow motion train wreck that everyone was saying was going to happen, and now it's beginning. And soon enough, because we're dummies, it'll be spread across large swathes of the southern United States.
So part of it is the Republicans just can't see anything that's not right in front of them. So this climate change, I can't see that. Here, I got a snowball. There's no climate change, right? So they're like, Zika virus, I don't see it. It's not here yet. And then you're like, it's here now. Like, oh, God damn it. The liberals are right again.
But they never say that. They never say the liberals were right again. They always say, what, Zika? All of a sudden, this is a national emergency. It's probably the Muslims.
You're absolutely right, Josh.
It's Muslim mosquitoes.
Yeah.
They have something to do with it.
Yeah, they will start with, no one could have seen this coming.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That's right.
Josh will do his thing. Wait a minute, 18 months ago I did the story.
Watch my show, for the love of God. Watch my show.
And then the second thing is they're like, no, you think there's no connection with the Orlando shooting and these mosquitoes coming at the same time?
God.
They were probably gay mosquitoes for all we know.
They're gay Muslim mosquitoes.
You know, look, there's a lifestyle on Miami Beach that was problematic, and where does it hit? Between 8th and 28th Street. That's exactly where that lifestyle is. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. So, the reality is, science is actually right. Although from time to time, they really say that mosquitoes don't travel that far. And I keep saying, yeah, but then how did they fly?
Well, but also the people travel. This is the other thing. People get bitten, and then people go. Like, people move. It's not rocket science. We live in a world where things move, where people move, where we live in on a globalized planet. You can expect that if scientists are telling you that there is no reason why a particular disease should not exist in South Florida, then that disease will exist in South Florida.
I mean, I hear your point, but mosquitoes don't have that kind of money to buy airplane tickets.
So, good counterpoint.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. Excellent point, Jimmy.
So, what do we think? Zika, should I be freaked out or should I not be freaked out? So, again, I believe we're done. We've got 2 kids. We don't have to worry about the pregnancy issue. So, if I get Zika, is it like no big deal? Who cares? So what? I'm going down to Miami Beach, and it's only something that the pregnant women care about?
It's not fun, but it's not going to kill you.
Mm-hmm. So what does it do to you if you're not pregnant?
I believe it's sort of flu-like symptoms. It makes you severely sick. There's a very small risk, I believe, of contracting Guillain-Barré disease, which is a really horrible, nasty disease that paralyzes your body and kills you. But that's minuscule chance. So basically, the problem is pregnant women. The problem is that there's this microcephaly where babies are born with very, very small brains, and that becomes an enormous public health problem, of course.
So a lot more Republican voters. That's why they didn't fund it. Maybe that's like we're losing our voting.
Right.
We got to shrink some brains. And there's a good way to do it, right? You just do it that way. But the good thing about when the Republicans killed that funding to fight this is that the Democrats are really good at pouncing on something like that and making it an issue.
Or maybe not.
Yeah, I was going to like Jimmy was our first show together.
And this exact conversation is exactly why Rick Scott didn't want to say it's in Miami. He held off until this morning. People were like, no, but the scientists are saying it's in Miami Beach. They're positive. He said, well, we'll see about that. And finally, it was just overwhelming, and he had to say, fine, it's in Miami Beach, because it affects tourists like me who then think, should I be going to Miami Beach? And that's a huge part of their tourist industry.
Huge part of their industry there.
Yep. And
Well, just Jack. Just Jack is a huge part of the Florida
Jack
tourism.
alone.
You wouldn't believe what he spends down there.
They heard that we were covering this, and they're like, no, not Jen.
People are like, he's eating so much. We're like, Jake, you're not supposed to get pregnant.
Yeah, it's a double whammy for me. Yeah. Can you imagine? All right, I'm going to leave it right.
All right. Okay. Popular YouTuber Louis Cole loves to vlog about his travels, and he's known among his 2 million subscribers as always trying to paint wherever he's traveling in a positive light. Most recently, he traveled to North Korea. So he's been catching a lot of heat for this. Let's take a look at one of these videos.
Just off a plane and we're killing the waves. Beautiful human, crazy when we human things losing. First people to break dance, beatbox and DJ in the country.
Okay, so that is actually a song that he uploaded on his channel called, and I hope I don't butcher this, but it's Sufin in the DPRK. And he says that he wants to, quote, bring our world together when catching some flack about painting North Korea, again, a country that is run by a dictatorship where, crimes against humanity are committed on a daily basis. He said, quote, I'm trying to focus on positive things in the country and combat the purely negative image we see in the media. But, a lot of people are not buying it. What about you guys? You buying this? You want to go to North Korea? Let's all go.
Well, I do want to go to North Korea, but I've been wanting to go to North Korea
This is a power panel
before.
right here. Let's go. Okay, good.
You want to go to cover it?
Yeah, wouldn't it be fascinating? I think North Korea would be one of the most interesting. I am constantly regretful that I wasn't alive or wasn't old enough to go to the USSR. And I think that's one of the last places where you could have that kind of experience of seeing a completely screwed up, closed totalitarian dictatorship. And I think hopefully within the next few decades, there probably aren't going to be any left anywhere in the world.
But do you think this is dangerous or potentially irresponsible? What he's doing to his?
I don't give a shit what a 20-year-old YouTube guy says. Like, he's allowed to go around the world and make light of. As far as I'm concerned, it was not a major propaganda video. It's not like he was standing there with Kim Jong-un saying that the regime is fantastic, right? He's doing a surfing video, and then people get their tits in the tangle because he goes off and does a... who is this? We didn't even know who this guy was 5 minutes ago. Why do we care? Does that cost a lot more? That's Django.
It really does hurt, I will say, from experience.
But I tell you, I've never heard of this guy until he made this video, so that's Publicity 101, correct?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I have a slightly different take on it. So, first off, 2 million subscribers ain't nothing to sneeze at. Because we didn't hear of him doesn't mean that a lot of people didn't hear of him. And so his videos are very popular, and so they're largely going to a younger audience, and how that younger audience is affected also makes a difference. Now, did he mean harm by it is a different question, and one I don't know at all. And here's what I would really, really doubt it. I think that it's generally being more clueless. It seems to fit in with the rest of his theme of, I'm uplifting and I'm traveling and here I am and it's really interesting to be in North Korea. That's true, right? He likes to see the positive things in life. That's true. It's just but if you went to, a concentration camp and you were like, well, look at the bright side, that's not the time to look at the bright side. And that analogy is not that far off. There are concentration camps in North Korea, and it is hell on earth. And for example, one of the dozens of horrific things I can tell you about North Korea is if somebody in your family leaves the country, runs away, they will take your family and put them in a concentration camp and hard labor for God knows how long. I mean, it is unbelievable what they're doing in North Korea. So painting in a light where some section of the audience or population might think, oh, they got cool surfing in North Korea, doesn't really do it justice. Now, the question to me is that he was just being the guy he is and doesn't realize the gravity of the situation? Or does he get paid to go to different places? Because that would put it in a different light.
Well, I will say that this was a state-organized tour of North Korea. So that calls into question, what was he actually being shown in North Korea? I don't think that he was being shown these concentration camps where, people's families are working after someone escapes North Korea. I don't think that was in any of the videos. So it makes me wonder how honest it was, this depiction of North Korea, even for him.
Well, speaking as if he's a legitimate journalist with some kind of a mission. He's a young British doofus who went to North Korea and made a surfing video. You're right. He's not a nobody because he has a couple of million followers. But that doesn't. I mean, for me, it's completely inconsequential. Like, draw for me the line between him doing this and any potentially negative outcome happening. What do you think his followers are devising British foreign policy towards North Korea? You think that the Prime Minister is watching these videos and going, oh, I thought Kim Jong-un was a bad guy, but now that I see the surf in North Korea is nice, I guess we should have a détente? I mean, what? There's no nexus here.
Well, Josh, the only thing I would say to that is that culture matters. And eventually, media has an effect on culture, and culture has an effect on everything. So, of course, this one video isn't going to change the world or the entire culture. But I think that the critics have a point in saying, hey, next time, just think about the context a little bit, right? And so I'm not getting on him like he's the world's worst guy. I'd be really surprised if there was some financial gain that he's secretly getting paid by the North Korean government. Yeah, they did the tour, but I'm sure he gets a tour wherever he goes. Right. I'm just saying, hey, next time, think about it a little bit. Some of the videos might need a little bit more context than the other.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when mentioning intention. What was his intention here? It obviously was not, like you said, to get his followers to come on guys, we need to get together. Let's write your local congressman, let's get this.
Support the Sun King. He doesn't win shit.
Support the Sun King. That would have been a whole different story. But it seems like, this was a really successful, really positive YouTuber traveling around the world. And maybe I'm borderline jealous. I wish someone would fund my trips and make cool music videos and me surfing.
Right. Not if it was in North Korea.
Damn it, Jen, get it going. Grace travels.
But North Korea, they're such an oppressive regime. I mean, people don't need to know that they have 5% of the world's population, and they imprison 25% of the world's population. They have a drug war that imprisons a minority population at much higher rates than. I mean, they talk about gulags. They really. That's our country.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of the United States.
That's weird. That's weird. We lock up more people than North Korea.
As a percentage. Right.
But we have, with that racist drug war inside of our own criminal justice system. But whatever.
I hear you, Jimmy, and those are super valid points. But what North Korea does is definitely worse.
Definitely?
Yes.
Yeah. How do they treat their immigrants? Do they put them in?
Oh, yeah.
What immigrants?
Who's trying to get into North Korea?
All masses yearning to breathe in Pyongyang's fumes.
They don't have Mexicans?
The question is, how do they treat the people trying to leave the country? And it is not good. And if they get caught, oftentimes execution. And finally, what would have been a better video, if you ask me, is what Josh mentioned. If you just did the fun facts about North Korea, you know that Kim Jong-un, according to the North Korean government, does not have an anus.
That's amazing.
He does not have an anus.
I know he's half God. Why would God need to poo?
Yeah. I really wanted just to be prove it.
Moon us.
Yeah. That's terrible. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I have the scoop on Amy Schumer and Kurt Metzger and all that drama that's surrounding her show.
Go.
But if he doesn't have an anus.
I do a whole bunch of stuff on stage. My name is Dave. I'm going to tell you some amazing facts. There was one woman in LA who was flying open, and here I am, now scrambling to repair it. Oh, got a great relationship. Enjoy.
Okay, fine. We'll do your budget. It's gonna be a nice fucking middle finger to that.
You
especially are so stupid.
More boring, less handsome version of Jack.
Only so many ways you can cook a steak, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you want some fucking tuna.
Maybe edit that out.
I thought it was a little embarrassing, but if people like it, I'll do it.
Who is on? Jen is macho.
There aren't going to be rose petals on the side of the runner. Why am I there?
It was the best Valentine's Day I've ever had.
How could someone not be trendy?
I don't know how she did it.
Thanks for being members and for being patient with me in this post-game show.
Back on the Young Turks. Members of the day are Jamel Lewis, member number 1336, and 1337 is Max Chapman. So Jamel and Max, you guys are awesome. TYTnetwork.com/join. We've got the Friday post game today. Malcolm was here this week, so it's going to be Malcolm and Dave. Sean Buffard writes in, this YouTuber is incredibly naive, referring to the story we just did. I hear you on that, brother. Beth Havens writes in, Hashtag TYT Live. Okay, if Jimmy Dore does a new show on TYT that is further left, I'm in. Times, days, etc. Hey, Beth, I haven't said a word. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying if you join TYTnetwork.com/join, then perhaps the show could materialize. Can I see 23,000? Anna was saying, can she see 25,000? I don't know. Can she see it by the weekend? Oh, you get me 25,000 by Monday, Jimmy will get a show. Guaranteed. Okay.
Guaranteed.
Jimmy's going to sign up for 2,000. Yeah, right. By himself. That's right.
Anonymous donor.
Yeah, exactly.
2,000 new members, and Jimmy gets the show, and it'll be sick left. It'll be maniacally left. Okay, all right. TYTnetwork.com/join. Did I say that already?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm progressive. And I am.
Well, you're a little aggressive.
I'm a little aggressive.
All right, let's see what happens. All right, Grace, what's next?
Okay. Bad news if you are an Amy Schumer fan like myself. Her show Inside Amy Schumer will actually not be returning for a 5th season. She's instead taking time to focus on her stand-up and her book, The Girl with the Lower Back Tattoo. Now, this comes after Schumer was in the news following controversy of a former writer on her show, Kurt Metzger, who caught a lot of flack for his remarks regarding rape when he was defending fellow comic Aaron Glazier. And we're going to throw up a picture, and I'm going to read some highlights from that Facebook post. He said, quote, in this post, Jeff Dilfyberg is a rapist. I know because all women said it, and that's all I need, he goes on to say. Anyway, Jeff Dilfyberg is dangerous, so fucking dangerous that we can't go to the police to report his many rapes. That would be too rapey, and the women are too brave for that. If we ask them to even merely also post a vague account of what happened before asking us to believe, that would be like re-raping their rape. So, of course, Amy Schumer was tweeted at by a lot of people asking how she felt about these comments. She responded on Twitter. She said, I am so saddened and disappointed in Kurt Metzger. He is my friend and a great writer, and I couldn't be more against his recent actions. She goes on, Kurt does not work for me. He is not a writer on my show. Please stop asking me about it. His words are not mine. And, she actually started blocking people who would continue to tweet to her about Kurt Metzger. She really didn't want to deal with it. But then she said in another tweet, I didn't fire Kurt. He isn't a writer for my show because we aren't making the show anymore. There are no writers for it. Now, guys, we announced that we were going to be covering this story, and Amy Schumer actually tweeted at TYT Live, and she said that she wanted us basically to read the remarks that she said on Charlie Rose this past Thursday, so I'm going to read those out to make sure that we get her side of the story. On Charlie Rose, she said, I think it's great that people are stepping forward, and if it's not done in a way that Kurt feels right, that's really upsetting to hear. We all need to be empowering each other, but to focus your energy on online trolling, if I did that, I wouldn't get anything done. Let's focus on getting the actual problem done. So basically what she's saying is she wants to focus on the real problem, which is rape, rather than the trolling and sort of the witch hunt. But she does say that he is the problem, no question, but the focus is on him rather than what we really need to be talking about. Before we get back to you guys, I just want to say that Kurt did respond following all this backlash. His name has been really, really in the news, which is unlike typical for him. He said, I am dumb to not realize this mob would lie and say I was yelling at rape victims, he told Mike. He went on to say, but I do care if a rape victim thinks I was mocking them, and I care if an innocent guy gets charged. The way I spoke fucked both of those things. Then he went on to say, isn't it ironic that there is more heat on me than the rape suspect, he said. Doesn't that tell you that I'm right? So a lot to unpack here. I want to get your thoughts. Jimmy, especially, you are a comic. You're in the comedy community. What do you think about this?
I don't know. I don't know. I did my show at the UCB Theater here in LA for many years when they first opened, and I don't know how you police something like that. I don't know these people, so I don't want to say. All I know is that I kind of feel sorry for Amy Schumer in a sense, because now she's got to take flack for people who work for her, comedians who write are, notoriously live a complicated life, nightclub performers, things like that. So there's lots of things. So, but then again, you have to, this comedy club, the UCF, they have to protect the people who perform there, and they've got. So what Kurt is saying, it's like, hey, why do you want to, if this really, I think what he's saying is that if this really happened, instead of getting together and coming at me, why don't you get together and go to the police and arrest this guy and get him in jail? Because now you're just kind of smearing him without actually proving the allegation. I think that's a legitimate point to make. But at the same time, I know again, it's a messy all the way around. The way he did handle it wasn't the right way. So
So let me jump in. I think that there's a couple of different issues here. And so first on Kurt, it's a little ironic when he says, well, that proves that I'm right because you guys aren't going after the rape suspect. Well, your whole point was to not go after him, right? You started all this for defending that guy who's your friend. Now you're saying, hey, why don't you go after the rape suspect? I know why he's saying it. He's like, if it's so serious, why don't you go after him? Does that prove that I'm right? No, it doesn't prove that you're right. It's, so people can think, hey, what he did was terrible, and what you did, like kind of making fun of it or making light of it, is also terrible. That doesn't really prove anything. So I agree with Jimmy, though, that it's not clear cut, and that people might get mad at that. So when Kurt goes and says, look, some people were mad at this quote, all women are as reliable as my Bible, a book that, much like women, is incapable of lying. So he's obviously kidding around, but he's doing it in a way that people feel like is smearing all women. But he's making a joke about relationships and about women and comedians. I think that's totally fair game. So I would have been super careful to make light of rape, which I don't think he was. I don't think he was anywhere near careful, right? He gets to defend his friend, and he gets to make what he thinks is a legitimate point of like, hey, you guys never proved this, right? That is a legitimate point. Whether that doesn't mean that it didn't happen either, right? So that's a complicated issue. But the thing is, what he's got to realize is when he says things like, or re-raping the victim's good home, no, don't say that. That's a really, really ugly thing to say.
Yeah.
And so I'm giving you as much leeway as I can. As a comedian, I think you get a lot more leeway. As you're defending your friend, I'll give you a little bit of leeway on that. I understand the argument you're making. I'm not immune to that argument. I get it, right? And we said when we covered that issue, we said, hey, listen, keep in mind that there's a lot of women who are saying this, but it hasn't been proven in a court of law. That's the one way to say it. Another way to say it is like this. Kurt, if you can't see why people would get mad at that, that's a little, you're being a little dumb about that. And I don't know the guy at all.
Well, Kurtz, I know him a bit. I've been on his show, Race Wars. I wouldn't say that he's a friend of mine, but I've met him. And I'm a UCB alum, so I know some of those people who are conducting the investigation into this alleged sexual assaulter. And I do think that Kurt's shtick is always to make sure that he is the most controversial person on Facebook or on Twitter at any given point in time. Right?
They should accomplish.
And so the manner in which he says things is intentionally confrontational. When you start delving into a subject that is as toxic and where there are as many tripwires as something like sexual assault, in the same way that if you were talking about race relations, for example, you have to be aware that if you trigger one of those tripwires, the whole world is going to blow up in your face. But I do think that it's a problem that it's impossible for a comedian to make an outrageous statement like this without potentially ruining his entire career. I mean, this probably will have consequences in terms of the clubs that want to book him. This may have consequences in terms of whether Amy Schumer wants to hire him back again if she does a 5th season of her show. Should it be the case that, a spewed out rant that is delivered insensitively about a touchy subject has the potential to ruin your life? He is making a coherent point. It's a point that I don't agree with because I think he's completely missing the context of how hard it is for victims of sexual assault to go to the police. He seems to live in this fantasy world where the police are really good at following up on those things and rape kits are constantly getting tested and the way in which we combat sexual assault from the perspective of law enforcement is abysmal and needs to be improved. But I can understand his point. Like he wrote a follow-up post the day before yesterday in which he basically apologized for the way in which he said this, but he did say he is opposed to women who tell other women that they shouldn't go to the police. He was like, he tweeted, who the fuck does UCB think they are? Are they the Catholic Church that they're conducting an internal investigation? If it's this bad, and I'll take issue with what you just said, Jack, about him being sort of a hypocrite for saying that his point was that the person shouldn't be prosecuted. His point is either the person is the worst person in the world and should be prosecuted and locked up in jail, or let's not conduct a whispering campaign that says this guy is a rapist and then ruin his life. Right? Let's either take it seriously or not seriously. But let's not have an internal investigation in a comedy club that could potentially ruin someone's life.
And I think we can all agree that this joke that started this whole thing was in poor taste. It's very sarcastic. And the really unfortunate thing here is that now Amy Schumer is kind of dragged into it because of their connection. And he even pointed out that he's a writer on her show for 3 months of the year.
Yeah, it's not fair for her to be involved in any way. She shouldn't have to apologize to him or make a statement about him. She shouldn't be asked about him. I know. They work together.
So, okay, let me jump in on that. First, real quick on Kurt. I'm not going to get to address every issue, but look, as I read the bottom of his Facebook thing, the statement that he put out originally, it's like, hey, Lady Ghostbuster, little girls, look up at us here. And he makes fun of progressive cattle or whatever. Sounds like a guy I wouldn't agree with. It sounds like, from my perspective, might be a dick. Okay, but that's okay. You're allowed to be a dick. It's a free country, and especially if you're a comedian, again, much more leeway. But I think that he's got to recognize, what if he's wrong? So he is ripping into these women. I get it. You're defending your friend. I get it. You think it didn't happen, and you're asking everybody else, but what if it didn't happen and you're ruining the guy's career? That's true, and that's a valid point to make. What if it did happen? And now you're telling those rape victims, oh dear, I mean, we should talk about, I don't even want to repeat the thing I said earlier, right? So maybe you should have looked into that. There is a line somewhere, even for a comedian, even for a guy who makes a living trying to be out there, etc. And boy, if this doesn't cross the line, I don't know what does.
I think it crosses the line, but what happens when people cross lines in society, right? I'm a firm believer that in a boisterous, interesting, pluralistic society. You want the maximum number of opinions, and sometimes the messiness of that will cause transgressions that a lot of people find ridiculously offensive. So I think that is preferable to a climate of fear and constipation where everyone is treading on eggshells because they're afraid of saying something that the mob is going to dislike.
So that's where I'm going to agree with you, Josh. So I don't. So I think it crosses the line of good taste, and I wish that he would look at it and go, "Yeah, shoot, what if my friend is full of shit and they were raped and then I made fun of them?" Oh, it's like I wish he would. I didn't get that sense from his so-called apology.
Yes.
Right. That was not an apology at all.
It was a non-apology.
Okay. Yeah. So fine. So what are the consequences? Look, we get to judge him. That's it, though. That's it. I don't think he's fired, right? And so a lot of people will disagree with that. And so, and I'm curious what you all think, right? And certainly it's not on Amy Schumer at all. At all.
What some asshole says that's written on her show before, it does not reflect on her as a person, what she believes. That's ridiculous that she got dragged.
So what, like, I'm responsible for everything Jimmy Dore says? Are you fucking kidding me?
I hope not.
Okay, no way! No way!
No, you are. You are. It is on your show. I'm on your network. It is on your head.
Well, then, okay, I gotta fire you preemptively. Okay. So no, it's not Amy. By the way, just to be absolutely clear, if they do a 5th season of the show, they just don't know when they're going to get back to it. It's kind of like
taking a break, it's
hiatus, etc. And they don't. She doesn't know if they're going to rehire Kurt on every one of these seasons, which lasts only 3 months. They rehire the writers, so technically he's not working for her right now. He might again later. Just want to be clear on that point. Now, for her, she gets to say exactly what she said on the show, which is, "Look, I like the guy. I work with the guy, and we have a great relationship. He shouldn't have said this." Yeah, that's it. We're done with it. As far as Amy Schumer's is concerned, that's good enough. Yeah, like again, sorry, Jimmy, using that. Let's say Jimmy says something outrageous. Wow, like that could happen, right? I go, "Hey, I love Jimmy. I work with Jimmy. That was a stupid thing to say. I'm done with it." Right? So, I mean, unless he keeps saying horrible thing after horrible thing, then I go, "Well, okay, I don't want that on the air all the time." You went a little beyond the bounds of reason. There's a point, right?
I think that's part of the problem, Jake, is the follow-up, right? Is that Kurt will try to explain himself, and he will be equally ham-fisted in the explanation as he was in the original post. So, and this is the problem when you're a public figure with social media, as I'm sure you are aware. If the mob turns on you, the best thing to do is to understand that this stuff runs hot but fast, and it'll be over soon, and don't engage, because his problem is partly the subsequent tweets that he's been tweeting, saying, which just dig himself further into a hole. That's the problem. He doesn't know when. He's a dog with a bone, and he doesn't know when to drop it.
Well, look, from what I read, and again, I don't know Kurt Metzger at all and his habits and stuff, but from what I read, he prides himself on being a troll. Like, they're trolling people, or not necessarily being a troll as a profession or whatever, but like, he likes trying to get a rise out of people, as you were saying on Twitter and Facebook. So, well, I mean, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned at some point. So that's why he continues to step back into it, because he can't help himself.
The problem is that the people who will attack him will intentionally misrepresent, and I've seen this again and again with myself as well on social media. They will willfully misrepresent what you're saying. Like, there is no space for nuance. It's not possible for him to say, like, he posted on Facebook the day before yesterday, this was part of, let me just read a line. "It was never my intent to antagonize victims or their supporters. My defensiveness came from feeling deliberately misunderstood. I am not a rape apologist." Do you think that's going to stop people from calling him a rape apologist?
No,
that's exactly what a rape apologist would say, though.
That's what they'll say. But that's the thing, though. You live by the sword, die by the sword. Like, he likes trolling people. Well, now he's getting trolled. And so now he's like, wait, if you do it to me, then my feelings get hurt. But that was what you did to people. So, I mean, okay, then I have a little less sympathy for you.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. But in his defense, he would say that he doesn't intentionally mischaracterize other people. He makes he finds very provocative ways of expressing opinions that are unfashionable, but he doesn't go after. And this is true of everybody. But I will say this of him to the extent that I know him, which is not very well, but I know people who do know him well, who will always say if you get into a big argument with him and you convince him that you're right, he will change his mind. Yeah, he's not a dogmatic a-hole.
So I don't know the guy at all, so you might be very well right about that. So in my experience, though, the guys who misrepresent other people the most will say that they never do it, and that they are shocked and chagrined by it. They're like, misrepresentation is the worst thing ever, as they're misrepresenting you, right? And so Maybe you're right about him, but online trolls, that's what they live and breathe, is to misrepresent.
Well, I don't think he's a troll, because I think that's the wrong term, because I regard a troll as being someone who intentionally tries to get a rise out of people by just spewing venom. He tries to get a rise out of people by saying controversial things that challenge their orthodoxies, that make them think about things in a different way, and he says them in such a provocative way that initially they're confronting. When you actually dig in and try to see the point that he's trying to make, he's not simply trying to get a rise, he's also trying to make a point.
And Grace, one last thing. There's a difference between, and that's good for you to point that out, between a troll and a guy who's trolling, right? So, like, if that's what he does, and his whole thing is to get a rise out of people, and that's the only reason he's doing it, and he doesn't care how he gets a rise out of people, whether they misrepresent them or not, that's a troll. That's what he does, right? He's just trolling from time to time in the way that you describe.
Right. He's trying to make a point.
There is a distinction.
He is trying to make a point. There is some intellectual content behind his nastiness.
Yeah.
What I was just going to say, you literally said what I was going to say, where I would characterize this interaction that he had and this post on Facebook as trolling. You know, maybe he's not necessarily a troll all the time, but what he did with this sort of sarcastic, Jeff Dilfenberg is a rapist, and I know that's trolling the victims, that's trying to get a rise out of people who are saying this.
But he is worried about an actual thing, which is the difficulty, because of the sensitivity of sexual assault, the difficulty of giving the presumption of innocence to men who are accused of it. That he is legitimately concerned about that.
But he didn't articulate that in a way that was clear.
Well, no, of course not.
Right.
That's him.
The way, right, and I think that's what's so frustrating about it, is that he did have, as we've discussed, he had some valid points. There are problems with how we go about prosecuting, victims of sexual assault and the people who are committing the assault. There's a major problem there, and we could have had that discussion. And I've heard, as a comic, actually really, very stimulating and challenging jokes about rape in America and rape culture. But this wasn't that, and I think that's why this sucks, and this sucks for just everyone involved.
Your original question, Josh, was what happens when people cross lines in our culture, and nowadays they make it a GOP nominee. Right, and I think the two factors are actually linked. I think one of the reasons why Trump has the support that he does is because people are sick and tired of feeling like they're being thought policed by politically correct.
Yeah. So that's why I say, just to be absolute clear, that's why I say don't fire him, because I don't want people walking on eggshells. What I want is a conversation. And so, at the same time, that means Kurt can't get too upset about the conversation. You wanted to start one, well, you started it, and we're having it, right? And I don't think you should be fired. I never, in all those times when Don Imus said the nappy-headed hoe or whatever he said, I said he shouldn't be fired. Almost every time Rush Limbaugh said something crazy, I said he shouldn't be fired. Look, they're talk show hosts. They're trying to stir up a conversation. I think they're douches, but it is what it is, and we get to fight back and forth. And so, because if we fire someone every time somebody says something wrong, well, it's going to shut down all conversations. And then when you do that, you're going to accidentally shut down really important conversations. So, I don't agree with them, but I don't think he should have been fired.
I think the greatest example of
he wasn't fired, just to be clear.
And he was.
The greatest example of what you're talking about, I think people would point to the Jimmy the Greek thing. Right now, do you remember that?
I do, of course. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel like maybe that should have started a conversation. Instead of what happened, it didn't start a conversation, right? And everybody was like, he's a bad person.
Yeah, that's funny. Wow, well, what a random thing. You're the second person to bring up Jimmy the Greek to me today, right? God must exist. So, anyways, so for you guys who are decades younger than us, you have no idea who Jimmy the Greek is. And he was a football prognosticator, and he said about how African American athletes are genetically better athletes because of the way slaves were bred, right? And so that was an outrageous comment, etc. Actually, you could have had a discussion around that, and it really would have been interesting. And what it would have done is it would have opened eyes about slavery and what happened and what were the results and
how they were treated like animals instead of human beings.
Right. And if CBS had done that instead of firing him, boy, they would have done such a better service to their audience. And if they involved Jimmy the Greek in that conversation, it would have been awkward and it would have been a little painful to get through, but it would have been much more enlightening. So that's why, let's keep an open mind. But part of that is to say, hey, what you did is wrong. And a lot of think what he did Kurt Metzger did was really, really wrong. And that's fair too.
We should also remember, and we were talking about this on my podcast just today, We the People Live, which people can get at
anywhere where good podcasts are found.
Yeah.
We're talking about the fact that if you are on the left and you broadly think that there should be punishments for people transgressing your sacred cows and saying things that are nasty against minorities, for example, just remember, in the long run, when there are inhibitions on what people can say, it's not minorities who come out on top. It's majorities who enforce their.
Yeah, in fact, the phrase political correctness comes from the Nazis. They were the first ones to use it. The communists soon thereafter used it as well. And it meant literally you have to say things that are politically correct. They don't have to be factually correct.
I think it was the communists, wasn't it?
So I read an article that it was the Nazis then Stalin, but maybe it was Stalin.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, if it was Stalin, everything's fine. Only the Nazis are bad. Stalin's a good guy.
So, and it was to say if you said anything that the government did not approve of, then there were going to be consequences for being politically incorrect. And we know where the Nazis led to, and we know where Stalin led to. Those are not good results, and they were terrible.
Lots of borscht.
That's right. It was terrible for minorities. So we want an open conversation, not a limited one. Okay, let's keep going. The next one's also controversial.
Next one. Country singer Blake Shelton has issued an apology after some old racist tweets were uncovered by In Touch magazine. Let's throw up some of these tweets that people are talking about. So he says one of them is grown men who wear Chuck Taylors may as well write on their forehead, "Cucumbers turn me on."
What? What the?
Right, and then let's go to graphic number 2, which is I'm not gay, but I think Ellen is hot. Wait a minute, what? What?
I don't even
and then
understand that.
graphic 3, and you can just kind of see there's a whole melange here of all these different tweets that we're finding. He says, if you haven't noticed Richard Simmons is gay, you haven't noticed Katy Perry's boobs. So, he was called out on this and he issued an apology. He says, quote, everyone knows comedy has been a major part of my career and it's always been out there for anyone to see. That said, anyone that knows me also knows that I have no tolerance for hate of any kind or form. Can my humor at times be inappropriate and immature? Yes. Hateful? Never. That said, I deeply apologize to anybody who may have been offended.
No, he's a musician.
Yeah, he's a musician, but comedy is a big part. I've never been. Now I really want to go to one of his shows. Apparently, there's music and there's some comedy and maybe there's some dancing. I was very excited to hear about that.
Everyone who knows him knows that hula hoop's a big part of what he does.
Big part of his act.
Yeah. Juggling, all the time.
Guys, do we think? I'm very interested to hear what you guys think. Because obviously, as the gay member of the.
What are you talking about? I'm the token gay as well.
Are you the token gay?
I'm the token gay too.
What?
I'm even gayer because I'm male. So.
Yeah, you're way gayer. I've never been out-gayed before on a TYT panel. I'm a little embarrassed.
I'm bisexual.
Really?
Well, I've had a bisexual time.
Damn it, Jimmy.
Talking about comedy.
So, how do you guys feel about these tweets? Do you think these are homophobic? Because he was getting dragged a little bit on Twitter.
I just think they were bad jokes. I don't think that's homophobic. That thing about Ellen was just a confuse. He's trying to make a joke. She's gay. I'm attracted to her. Does that make me? Oh, wait a minute. No, it's just dumb, bad jokes. Like cucumber. It was like a 6th grade joke. They're dumb jokes. And by the way, Chuck Taylors are gay. There's no Chuck Taylors. What are you talking about? Chuck Taylors are Chuck Taylors. Aren't they cool? I thought they were.
But by the way, maybe that's what he means. Because I always thought they reverse all the stereotypes, right? Mexicans are coming here, work their ass off, and they call them lazy, right?
They look so lazy they take our job.
Right? Indian givers, we took everything from Native Americans, then we call them Indian givers, right? And so and gay guys are so much more fashionable than straight guys, and then we're like, oh, the uncool are gay.
Yeah.
No, wait, isn't it the reverse? Right. So maybe what he was trying to do was empower it and say, Taylors are cool, and hence they are gay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know what he was trying to do.
Fighting social commentary in the form of a 6th grade joke. I like it.
Isn't this sort of a little bit like the Kurt Metzger thing in that, there's just a brigade. There are people out there who I call the professional umbrage takers who scour online to try to find things to get offended at, and this is an easy thing to get offended at. They're stupid jokes. I mean, I suppose they're mildly out of taste. I mean, I suppose you could get offended by them. But the fact that he has to genuflect and issue statements about how he doesn't mean this, it's humiliating and ridiculous. And also, just a quick point. This is from 2009, 2010, 2011. I don't mean to say everything is like totally culturally contingent, but our ideas were different back then. I used to do material about gay people in 2010, 2011, where I would do like a gay voice that you just wouldn't do today. Like, it's changed that quickly. I mean, nobody was thinking about gay marriage, so he's a bro doing like dumb. He's a southern country
And also,
singer.
in
I mean,
fairness,
what do you expect from him?
I think pointing out the timestamp is important. It was 2009. Blake Shelton didn't know he'd be Blake Shelton in 2009.
He was a little whippersnapper with a glint in his eye.
Idea what was that the Voice was going to be coming out, that some guy in Sweden would think of the Voice and then it would come to the U.S. He had no idea. And I agree with you. I think you could get offended if you were to sit and really think about it. And I'm sure, and I don't want to invalidate people who were offended. Maybe someone really had a fear of cucumbers and were gay and it was a whole triggering thing. I don't know. Maybe fine, whatever. But I think for the average looker at this tweet, reader, one might say, you'd really have to, you'd really have to sit with it for a while and decide to be offended. I don't know. I just feel like I'm an authority because I'm a lesbian. But can
I just say that is the best use of the word looker? I'm going to be a looker from now on. When I'm reading a book, if someone's going to say, "What are you reading?" I'm going to say, "I'm not reading. I'm looking. I'm looking at a book."
So when he made those tweets, the liberal nominee for president at that time was against gay marriage.
Correct.
Now, that would be considered bigoted.
And President Obama was against gay marriage.
And he was against gay marriage at that same time. So I guess you're going to have to give Blake Shelton a pass on his fucking Converse jokes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to add one small note here to the opposite direction. Okay. I agree with you guys overall. And Jimmy and I have talked about this when we were growing up. The jokes people would make were far, far worse, right? And it's not like we didn't make some of those jokes, but then I was an idiot Republican when I was growing up. At least you weren't, Stuart. But and you're absolutely right, Josh. That even so now it's sped up an enormous amount. That from 2009 to just 2016, there's been a giant difference. Okay, the small note in the opposite direction is people who bring this to light, though, do help to fix it a little bit, right? They do make it so that it's not cool anymore to make gay jokes. Whereas, like, back then when he was making them, he probably felt like, haha, this will be funny, it'll be cool, I will get approval for this. And when you get disapproval for it, well, then people get reluctant to make fun of gays. Good, that's not such a bad thing. So I'm saying, like, we should make a federal case out of it, yet at the same time, the people that are pointing it out are doing some service as well. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I used to make transgender jokes. I didn't know it. I didn't know it, and that was recent. That was just like maybe 5 years ago. I thought you were going to say 4. I made one on the show, one still at Kern, whatever, and I got a lot of email. I was like, I'm just making it. And so then I was like, I started taking a closer look at it, and yes, I didn't know that transgender people were discriminated against. I didn't know the violence that was inflicted. I didn't know. So now I do. Now I don't do that stuff anymore.
Yeah, and so here I'll give an example too. We've been Young Turks been on the air forever now, 14 years, back from when we were a radio show. And I think we used to, we used to use the word tranny, and we didn't know that it was a bad word. And then people told us it was a bad word, and we're like, oh, okay, then we won't use it anymore. I think the answer here is let's point it out without like calling for heads. Like, without saying, oh, he's a monster and he should be fired from The Voice. Yeah. And I'm not sure that people are really saying that, right? So just to be a little tempered.
The person who retweeted a lot of these and who revealed a lot of these, which was at MusicFactsT on Twitter, says, here are some extremely homophobic tweets by Blake Shelton. He's disgusting. That's a bit extreme to me.
Yeah.
To say that they're extremely homophobic because he's just poking fun at gay stereotypes and that it's disgusting. Get a life.
And I don't like the sort of witch hunt culture that we can get in on social media when we unearth something about someone, and then, there's, especially of these sort of jokes. It's again, jokes in poor taste, but do we need to be dragging him on Twitter? No. And I really do think that his apology was a good and sincere apology. He acknowledged that, his humor was inappropriate and immature, but not hateful. And I don't think you can look at these jokes and be like, the hate! So angry. Like, this isn't an angry joke. He acknowledged it. He moved on. Again, these tweets are so old.
Can I also say, just in terms of the age of the internet and, like, YouTube and Twitter and social media, 2009, This guy was on top of it. Twitter in 2009, I didn't even know Twitter existed. If you'd asked me when Twitter was invented, I would have been like 2010. Definitely 2010.
So maybe he
2011,
did know that he'd be Blake Shelton, and he's like, I better get this Twitter handle right quick.
Did Blake Shelton invent Twitter?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of his repertoire. Yeah, it's well known. It's well known. Comedy,
Right.
music,
And Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
that's right.
But there's one more point to this is that men, even if you can consider yourself progressive and evolved, you were brought up in a certain way, like we were talking about before. We used to use gay slurs just out of no problem. That we didn't even think about it was wrong, right? So we didn't think it was wrong. So that gets hardwired into your lizard brain, and then sometimes you get angry and it comes out, like it happened to Alec Baldwin years ago.
Yeah.
So a guy got in his face with paparazzi, and he called him he's got a cocksucking faggot, right? But he said he called him a cocksucking fathead, right?
That's the worst excuse I've ever heard.
Because apparently cocksucker's okay. Cocksucker's gender neutral, apparently. But the faggot part got him in trouble, and he said he's a cocksucking fathead, which no one swears like that. Nobody says a meaty $5 swear word and then follows it up with a cartoon swear word. Nobody says you motherfucking fart snarkle. Nobody says that. So that's another area where you have to cut some guy slack, because he grew up at a different time. He gets hardwired into his lizard brain. He comes out, and he was, I would think you would consider him very pro-gay. I mean, he was amateur for a long time, but now
he's pro. Now he's gone pro. Okay, yeah, no, and Alec Baldwin, of course, fired immediately from MSNBC, which was crazy. Immediately. Yeah, Alec Collins. Okay, all right.
Last story. Should we start teaching teens about BDSM in sex ed? Well, according to Catherine Clement, who is the co-author of a newly published study out of Northern Illinois University, she thinks maybe we should. So let's throw up a graph about Clement's study. She analyzed surveys filled out by 60 college students, 68 random online respondents recruited through Amazon's MT Turks site, and 57 self-identified BDSM practitioners. The groups, which included a robust mix of ages and genders, answered whether they agreed with such sexist and victim-blaming statements as, when girls go to parties wearing slutty clothes, they are asking for trouble, and many women have a quality of purity that few men possess. So she says that the kinkier participants, and this is on graphic 3, were actually less likely than college students to support benevolent sexism or stereotypes that misrepresent women as weak creatures in need of male protection. It's not assumed in the BDSM community that just because she's a woman that she wants to be submissive. And guys, I have to tell you, I was a little interested to read about this and then mortified to explain it to my mom, who is in the studio today.
Well, so that's why, of course, this is never going to fly. No way in America they let you teach this to high school students.
Right.
And in the beginning, I thought, well, that's funny and outrageous in kind of a fun way. Then I thought, well, look, you're conflating things. These are the most sexually open people because and hence have a little bit more education about sex and are less likely to go and fly off the handle, and that was my assumption. But after having read it all, I actually think it makes a tiny bit of sense.
I agree with you.
Which I'm really surprised by, for 3 reasons. So, one, they say, in BDSM, you must get permission before you do things. And if you teach people that, well, then, there's less likely to be sexual assault or rape, because the culture then becomes getting permission before you do something.
Consent. You're getting consent.
That's right. And then, secondly, women are dominant in BDSM, I guess half the time. I don't know the stats, but certainly some percentage of the time. And so this idea of like the fragile woman and the old stereotypes about that and how that leads to sexist attitudes, etc. Like, wait, that's also really a logically pretty good point, right? That would defeat that kind of sexist idea. And then the third one was that consent can be withdrawn at any time in BDSM. That's why they have the safe word. Right? So you're like orange, dragon, whatever your safe word is.
Orange, dragon, now we... No, what your safe word is.
Yeah, exactly. My safe word, lose the watch. Anyway.
Oh, Jesus. So
but when you think about that, consent can be withdrawn at any time. Just because you guys were making out doesn't mean she said yes to having sex. Like, maybe she's got a point.
It all makes a lot of sense, but it is so far from feasible. Like, I feel like baby steps, America. You know, when I was at school in Australia, and I mean in middle school in the 90s, we were putting condoms on dildos. We were like, this is part of the state curriculum. Like, this is, you know, there were ads on TV all over the place about saying always wear a condom. Like, you know, it's just a much less hung up. There's a saying in Australia whenever there's like a sexual scandal in the United States, like Nipplegate at the Super Bowl or Monica Lewinsky or something, that thank God we were settled by criminals instead of Puritans, because there's just less hang up about that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so the level of sex education in many American states is truly appalling. I mean, you know, not even knowing where bits go and how things work. So baby steps first. Yeah. Maybe someday, like in 2055, we can get to BDSM. Let's just start with fundamental, rudimentary facts.
I agree with you on the baby steps. And another thing I want to point out to you guys, this was a really small first study. Now, the results are really interesting, but I mean, it's only 60 college students, 68 random online respondents, and then 57 self-identified BDSM practitioners. So it really is sort of, it's intriguing, but we have to start way smaller in the U.S. Again, like if we're already this hung up about just teaching sex ed to begin with, not everyone necessarily even agrees with that. We really shouldn't be introducing BDSM at the PTA meeting. Like, what do we all think? I don't think that's going to go over very well. But I'd be interested to actually learn more about these studies. I would like to see sort of a broader expansion of this. I was super interested to hear about it, and it made so much sense, like you were saying, Jank. It makes, of course, they have to ask for consent. The whole thing is about consent. That's hot.
Yeah. No, I think these studies should go further and further and further until I say dragon.
Orange dragon.
Orange dragon. See, I already forgot my safe word, so you should keep going.
Oh, God, no.
Okay. No. Orange dragon. Orange dragon. This story's over. Okay, we went way long. God bless. Thank you guys for doing that. And everybody check out the post game coming up, pytnetwork.com/join. Everybody check out Pop Trigger. Grace is on there. Everybody check out the Jimmy Dore Show. Everybody check out We the People Live. That is Josh's podcast. It is apparently in reputable places where you get podcasts. So, yeah.
Oh, and now also Android people can get it because we're on Google Play.
Oh, that's it. You Android people going nuts. Okay, thank you.